Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking in on the project. Just to let you know that I have actually virtually finished this job. That wasn't the original intention. The original intention was that I was going to kind of take you along in a few of the repairs and maybe kind of give you a few kind of tips and tricks that I picked up. Maybe share a few of those, but unfortunately it just wasn't to be. Working for the Yankee dollar means that quarter ends can be a bit of a pain in the bum. So September I did nothing to the bike. All I did was just go work to bed, work to bed. So the bike suffered, unfortunately. So look, just to let you know what I have done is the bike has obviously been fully serviced. It's had new oil and filters and plugs and so on. What else? The engine also needed valve adjustment. It needed a check done, and it needed an adjustment in the rear cylinder. I was thinking happy days, I'm out of the front cylinder, but when I went to screw on the rocker cover for the front cylinder, it actually the treads were already stripped. I don't know who the 200-pound gorilla is. It wasn't me in this situation, but I had to get the cam cap off of the front cylinder for the intake side, because the bolt for the rocker cover bolts are screws down into the cam cap for the intake side. So that had to come out, and that had to have a steel threaded insert, not a head coil. I did a steel threaded insert into the original location. So when I was doing that, I put on new rocker cover gaskets, new original OEM ones. It had an intermittent misfire and some bad smell of petrol. I think I got to the bottom of that just by snapping the connector onto the back of the coil improperly. It was just loose, so the bike is running like a champ. Now I've also, when I was working on the engine, I had to fit the rear cam chain tensioner, a manual adjuster. The front one had already been fitted by someone else. But what I had to do is I had to go in through this space, and you've just about enough room if you take this out of the way to stick your hand up there past the exhaust, and you can do it blind. It's a bit of a pain. It's not the worst job in the world, but it took a bit of fettling. The interesting thing about it, though, it was just a standard. I don't have the original to show you, but I can tell you that this, as you can see, it's kind of grub screwed onto the back of the tread. It's grub screwed onto the back of the tread. Focus. And I had to nip it off. There was just no way to adjust the adjuster up in that position. You would maybe have been able to get onto it with some very particular type of crow's foot spanner, maybe, but I just decided it wasn't worth the hassle. So what I did was I nipped the thread off at the back, and I just slotted the remaining thread. So now you basically, it just involves I cut a slot into the back of the tread, so you just, with a flathead screwdriver, you just manually adjust it into just what I found was just slack of the right chain tension, and what by the time then that you give the lock nut on the back of the new tensioner and nip, it would kind of pull up an extra bit of slack. It was a little bit of a faff to to do it, but it was, I think if I didn't do that, I'd still be faffing about with it today, to be honest with you. So that was that. Valve clearances done, the cam cap in the front, new rocker cover gaskets. The oil cooler got a bit of attention. It just got a bit of a dicky up, really. It just needed to be repainted. I have a cover to put onto it there, but I just didn't get around to it yet. I would highly recommend, if you've got one of these bikes or the DL650, you should definitely get that thing covered up. It's very exposed, especially when this one also doesn't have a fender extender. I think I'm going to get one of those too. The heat shield as well, all the exhaust stuff. You know, exhausts are always a sore point on, or a sore point on many bikes. Heat shields, brackets break, things seize into place whenever they have a hard life, so I just had to do a bit of work to just stabilize that heat shield. On the other side, the shifter, this project I think was very much one of these kind of two step forwards, one step back type situations. The shifter on this side is the second one I bought. This one is the K3 only. I think it's the same as the previous curvy frame. shifters, so I had to get this when I got a replacement. It was wrong. The original one, which was actually here next to me, it was in very poor order. The rose joint was broken, it was very crusty and just a worn out part. But when I eventually got this replacement, which was take two, I actually couldn't get the rod to work with it. I realised that on the rose joint side of the original shifter is a female thread, so that you can basically you can kind of wind that rod out to make adjustments to the lever up or down. And but unfortunately, after 2 attempts, and the second attempt, it wasn't a very good part. It was a poor quality part. That rose joint had a forward thread, so what I did was I had a broken screwdriver, one of these extra long screwdrivers, and it was broken. It was just a piece of cheap crap. So what I did was I nipped the handle off, and I put a standard right hand thread on either end of my new rod, and that then worked. You lose the adjustability obviously, but you know, like it's going to be kind of a one-time only adjustment, so I could kind of live with that. But yeah, I seem to be working at the side of the bike an awful lot because of that. Also, when I was in there, I painted the engine casings in both sides. I didn't do the barrels and heads themselves. I just did the main side casings. They were the only part that was scruffy. The forks got painted. Also on the front, I got some replacement discs, used OEM items which were in fabulous condition. New brake fluid, new caliper seals up front, new brake lever on that side. So that one just was bent and a bit twisted, so I just managed to get a replacement. But the bike has also been validated by my dear friend Andrew. His brokenness, the broke petrol head. The seat has been repaired. This is a repair I like to do. Well, I couldn't for love nor money get a replacement seat anywhere. I was waiting, and they were all in the same kind of condition. You know, obviously the area up here, that's the usual spot you'd expect them to break, and mine was no exception. But like I think I got charged like 25 quid from the local upholsterer to make that, which is great. It saves you having to throw out an otherwise perfectly good seat. So what else we got? Brake seals, brake discs. Oh yeah, the tire valve is very funny. I got the bike here after driving it back, after riding it back, and I spotted a split, you can't even see it there now, in the tire valve. And I said, oh, well, that was close. When I brought the wheel to get looked at, and I just flicked it. I said to the guy, oh look, this valve here, and I flicked the valve to show him, and it just split and just spewed out all its air. So yeah, a new valve for the front tire, which was a hilarious one. So the tire valve miscellaneous. Oh, I also on this side, again, this is a replacement that I made up. I had to get I think a back one, and I think the stem was good, but I managed to get a cheap OEM one used for next to nothing, and I managed to fix that up. And this little satisfying repair. I straightened up that, you know, it's still a bit scratched, but it's an awful lot straighter than it was with fresh bolts. I gave it a rub of some Autosol as well to clear off some rust from the last fasteners. Generally, some new fasteners here on the rear sets, here as well, and just generally anywhere that kind of had a crusty fastener I got attended to. Obviously I went around and touched up some. Well, speedo drive as well in the front, but it was dropping out intermittently. Speed would just go to 0 for some reason, so apparently it's a common enough fail. So apparently I think I'm done. I'll give it a start. I have the bike rigged to start with one-handed. There she goes, priming. No more cam chain slapping, no more misfires, running like a champ. Very, very pleased with the outcome. Very, very pleased with this bike. It's gotten so late in the year. I think actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it for the winter myself. And maybe kind of do a last couple of odds and ends, little bits of tidying here and there, just to kind of get it really right. I might try to get the belly pan as well. I think the belly pan really finishes the bike. I thought I was onto one there last week, but it wasn't to be. Little fender extender would be no harm. Stick on that oil cooler cover, and I think we'll be waiting for slates. The bike is kind of for sale. If you have anything that you'd like to swap against it, I'd be interested in talking to you. I'm looking to try to get maybe kind of more modern projects, whether they be things that have, you know, a bit of scope, a sensibly priced bike, a newer bike, you know, maybe down with slope, maybe with a couple of repairs, maybe it's been down its side or something like that. Otherwise, I'd say I'm just going to run it until the new year, and maybe try to sell it then in March, you know, once COVID is gone, and maybe when we're into a new year motorcycling, you know, it'll be better for the value of it. But look, anyway, that's the end of the project from your perspective anyway. It's been a fun refresh. I'm sorry that I couldn't drag you along with a few of the repairs, but look, that's just life, unfortunately. But listen, thank you very much indeed. Hit me a like if you fancy, and if you're not subscribed, why not subscribe? Costs you nothing. Anyway, thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.